Homage to our root teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha.
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 It is rare to hear the teaching of the Pratimoksha Sutra,
It is rare to hear the teaching of the Pratimoksha Sutra,
and it may take countless great eons to encounter it.
and it may take countless great eons to encounter it.
Studying and reciting it are also rare.
Studying and reciting it are also rare.
Practicing it is the rarest of all.
Practicing it is the rarest of all.
Let's cultivate our motivation. And since we're going over the Abbey guidelines, maybe find a way to relate those to our ultimate or long-term goal of bodhicitta. So first, Venerable Kadro is going to go through a couple things.
So there's something I asked Venerable Children about by email the other day, and she suggested that I bring it up in Vinaya class. So it's about this practice of putting statues on the top of the bookcases in the library. I asked Venerable, it's something I've wondered about for a long time, and I finally got around to asking Venerable Lamsel, who said she's also uncomfortable about it, but it seems to be a long-term thing. Even Venerable Children doesn't remember who started it, and nobody ever said anything about it. So I'm saying something about it because normally it's said that Dharma books should be higher than other things. We shouldn't put things on top of Dharma books. And I remember once hearing Lama Zopa Rinpoche talk about visiting the home of a student who had a shelf with their Dharma books above their altar. And he really made a point of talking about that. And I don't remember exact words he used. It was a long time ago. But it just made it sound like that's the right way of doing things, instead of like a lot of people put Dharma books under their altar. And I wrote to Dr. Nick, who's in charge of the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives, and asked him if he had any direct quotes from Rinpoche about that. And he sent a reply saying, I don't know where it was, maybe a Kopan course, but I have definitely heard Rinpoche say that books should be placed above statues, above the altar, because they communicate the teachings more directly than statues do. So in that way, they are more valuable. That was his word. So yeah, it's not an exact quote, but just something he heard. I don't know if this is something to be open to everyone to discuss, or anyone has any opinions. I mean, I suppose there were just statues that were given to the Abbey, and people didn't know where else to put them, and they said, oh, there's some empty spaces on the top of the bookshelf, so let's put them there. And I mean, definitely with the new Buddha Hall, we can do things differently. We can put have shelves just for statues and shelves just for books, and not mix them like that. But for now, maybe there's another place that the statues could be put. And especially, I'm really concerned. There's one huge statue which doesn't even seem to be a Buddha. It looks like a little Chinese monk. child monk, and it's right on top of the shelf containing all the books on Madhyamaka Prasangika, emptiness, and so on. So it just really doesn't seem appropriate. Okay, well, I don't know who's responsible for things like that. Well, I was thinking maybe the workroom, because there's quite a few shelves in the workroom, and there are already some statues in there that look like they're waiting to be filled or painted or whatever. So maybe they could be put in there.
Good. So in our guidelines, we're on page 3. We're at the section called meditation session attendance. So I'm going to read the guidelines, and then I invite people to make comments if they have, especially if they have ideas about why this was made this way or anything. So if you have comments you want to make, just let me know. Anywhere through this session. So meditation practice is a very important part of our community life, an important part of our Dharma life. And we can see that, having met people from other Buddhist traditions, that some people actually don't make time for meditation. So our schedule is designed for us to have a balance of things. And when you meet people from other traditions, you'll see some people have a different balance, and we have a pretty good blend. And something to think about, why you want, offering service is part of everybody's day, usually eating, sleeping, study, meditation, but not everybody keeps all of those things. So if you're sick and cannot attend a meditation session, notify your roommate, care buddy, or leave a note on the whiteboard in the dining room or meditation hall, so others will be aware and offer help when needed. And so we have pretty much systems like in Gotami, people leave a note there, or they tell their roommate, and the whiteboard here and in the meditation hall. I think I would add to this that it's really important that we know everybody's okay. People even may have patterns of behavior, and you can expect somebody that maybe you aren't surprised if they're there or not there, but you actually never know if somebody is okay. Literally, at any age, a person can have a stroke, from young to old, and it happens without notice, as we know from our friend Mary. So that's just the body doing what the body does. Yeah.
My roommate has told me to not wake her up in the morning if she's usually, if she's healthy and fine, she's up before me. Mm-hmm. But she said if she's still sleeping, to just leave her sleeping. And I haven't been writing down on the board if she's missing sessions, because she misses a lot of sessions, and I never know what is really going on. So
I actually,
suggestions.
my own thought is it's probably good to write it on the board so other people know. Okay. It's important that you know. And my thought is, don't wake her up, write it on the board so other people know. I think if you do it, in the meditation hall, you could write it there, but definitely on the whiteboard in here after breakfast so everybody knows, because literally I haven't seen her all day today, and I've been wondering, is she on leave? Good. She's on leave. Good. Yeah, I remember she was talking about that. And even though I'm the scheduler, I don't keep track of this stuff. The only thing I'm keeping track of is water and buildings. That's as much as I got going. So yeah, let's see. But yeah, that would be my 2 cents. It's helpful to know when anyone misses sessions. It actually helps the group harmony to have the communication. If you need to miss a session for mental health reasons, discuss with your mentor. Then leave a note on the whiteboard so that everybody knows. That does come up, and I think that's, a really good way to go about this. If you don't have a mentor, because you're beyond that. You maybe have worked this out so far, but definitely probably should be discussing it with someone, because usually by the time you don't have a mentor, you've worked this out. I know I used to peel out of the meditation hall in the first year I moved here. When it was just Simke and I was just like ballistic, and I had to just peel out of there. And we aren't supposed to do that, but I was like, I hadn't learned how to control my mind. Now I don't have to do that, and I don't have a mentor. So I'm hoping that the people who don't have mentors have kind of learned how to work their minds more. Hopefully. Yes, yeah, people do need to know. Yeah. And I guess if you're at that point and you feel like if you don't have a mentor and you need help, then ask for help. Maybe something big has come up. You never know. The mind is a fragile thing sometimes. If you do not want to meditate with the group, speak with your mentor and or the abbess. Do not do this on your own accord and simply notify others. And if that does happen, it's good to be sure that everybody is aware. The communication around this is helpful, because it's very confusing when people you think some people might have spoken to somebody, but if the group doesn't know, then half the group thinks they went off on a tangent on their own, and the other half knows that they spoke with somebody. So this is where we've had a number of times of miscommunication around these kind of things. And because we're a larger group now, communication is actually even more important. Anyone have any concerns or questions about that? Yeah.
So I'm a little bit in the dark about the phrase. I'm going back to the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
If I thought that I had mental health reasons, I'd never be in the hall. So I'm just wondering what this captures, because I could tell myself all the time that, I'm afflicted,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a bad mood. So what really is this one getting at? Because I would just never be in the hall.
Right. So if you feel the need to miss a session, I mean, we go to the hall to work out our mental health problems, but if sometimes a person can feel so overwhelmed. So I think you're asking for a criteria of when that's appropriate and when it's not. Well, generally, I think you should be in the hall, basically. But I also think that it's an individual situation, and that person, I think we do say here, discuss it with your mentor. So I think would be the ideal thing if you felt that way, like it's just too much. The best thing to do would be to go chill your mind, however you know how, and then speak with your mentor and try to work it out so that you don't miss sessions. That would be what I would suggest would be the first course of action. A lot of times we're over exaggerating things we're just out to lunch, exaggerating things. Attachment exaggerates, anger exaggerates, or delusions are, when you're caught in the middle of them, you're just circling around and you actually are a little bit lost. And you need help if you feel like you can't be at a session. So I would suggest sitting there. And for me, I have ways that I work with my mind when it's disturbed to get it to settle down. I did learn from Venerable Children that was helpful. I've mentioned to a lot of people, because I used to be this person, that the antidotes actually don't work when your mind is too stirred up. So you actually have to find a way to calm your mind. If you think of your mind as like a pot of water and it's boiling, you'll have a difficulty using the antidotes then. So you have to find a way to get the mind calm. There can't be any clarity when it's so energized with whatever's going on. So I know what I do for myself for that. I have certain meditations I do when my mind is disturbed. I have like a list of like 4 or 5 things that are my go-to things. If you don't have ways to work with your mind in that way, and you think this is something that you need to learn about, then I would talk to your mentor and work out what you have to try things out and see what works at different times. I can't tell you what your medicine is exactly, but there's a lot of ways to get the mind more calm. Even if, basically, even if my last resort for my own mind is to completely distract myself. Not like I'm trying to suppress something, like I know I have a problem, but I know my mind is too out of whack to actually deal with it. So I need to kind of get myself away from it. Like if you look in the middle length discourses, number 22, working with distractions and meditation, the Buddha lays out 5 methods there. The first 4 are the ones that I think that we should be doing the most. The 5th one I don't really suggest, and the Buddha didn't really emphasize very much, which is crushing mind with mind. I don't think you can do that when you're new in the practice particularly. But the first ones lay out how to work with the mind when it's highly distracted. And one of them is this. And when Bhikkhu Bodhi taught on this, he would tell people to go in your room, take out your drawers, dump everything out on the bed, and reorganize everything and put it back. To get their mind, to distract their mind from what's disturbing them. Literally, if you read his commentary on this, that's what he said. Because one of them is to distract your mind. That's like I think the 3rd or the 4th. It's like the unruly child that's so unruly that you just have to distract it to get it away from what it's thinking. But there's ones before that.
Word distract the mind can also be misleading, because some people may say, oh, well, that means I can just sit back, relax, and have a sexual fantasy. That's distracting my mind.
True. That wouldn't be it.
So we have to be it's more change your focus rather than pick your favorite topic of distraction.
Yeah. I know for myself, when I'm really out to lunch, very highly emotional, I actually go out and lay in the grass. I usually cry and I stare at a piece of grass. And I actually just focus my mind. And actually, it's exactly what I did when we had the thing with Geshe Dadul. I was really upset when we had that circle. It's the first time I processed it, and it wasn't the way that really worked for me. And I was, for 45 minutes, I was so angry. And what I did was the same thing. I stared at the prayer flags to stabilize my mind, because I was out of control with what I was feeling at that time. For myself, I just really particularly thought that until I know something, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this until I know something. And then when I did know something, it kind of hit like all at once. And I needed some time. Personally, I needed some time to myself to just kind of integrate the information. And so it took me 45 minutes or whatever to kind of do that. And that works for me actually quite well. I just put my attention on something really strongly and let the other thing subside. And then when I can go back to it, when I'm not going to go ballistic. Because the thing is you can, if your mind is too unruly, Kim MacLeod teaches this very well, and Tenzin Kacho taught us this many years ago at DFF, and I find this really helpful. If you have the choice of awareness, and once you change your mind to that, you don't have to suppress things or express things. But until you have some control of the mind, when the mind gets overpowered with the emotion and the expression, which was my problem, because I used to suppress things and then I didn't have to deal with it. Then when I started having to feel things, the expression was too strong. It was too strong in my meditation practice. So I had to come back to the breathing to get my mind settled down again, so then I could focus on awareness of what was going on. And this, I trained myself with this for years. This is one of my list of 5, and it helps me a lot just because of my own mental makeup. So I don't want to express it by having emotions that are out of control when I'm even sitting on the cushion, I don't want to repress it, but I might want to. When I say distract myself, actually, when I focus on looking at grass or looking at prayer flags, I'm not like forgetting that I have an issue. I'm not going to like bury it, but I'm just in that moment knowing that my mind is not in a place where it can actually deal with it. So I need to come back to it later. So I'm just actually changing the focus of my attention quite strongly for a long time. Does that help? I don't know what will work for anyone else. I really don't. I know what the Buddha taught in that discourse, and those are all very helpful. It's the distracting, working on with distractions and meditations. The Middle Length Discourse is number 22. Venerable Chodron has it in one of the books, volume 4 maybe. I think it's in this volume. It's not that long, it's not that hard to understand, but it's methods that, when you're trying to concentrate the mind and it goes off, how to work with it. And it has nice analogies and metaphors, whatever. Let's see. So that was that. Anything more before we go on to the next section? Okay. So now we're on offering service. Everyone offers service daily according to the schedule. The days we have teachings, there's no study time, and offering service is extended in the afternoon. I think everybody's familiar with this section. A community resident will be the offering service coordinator who facilitates offering service for guests and anagarikas. Tea breaks are not assumed as a regular part of offering service time. However, water breaks are recommended when doing physical activity outside. Residents will be mindful in taking reasonable breaks as needed to maintain their health and productivity. They will also be mindful not to let their break interfere with other people's offering service by striking up long conversations. Breaks should be no longer than 15 to 20 minutes. What I was going to say is that the total length of our offering service is from 8:45 till 12:30, and then 2:30 to 5:45, something like that. Yeah, the long afternoon. There is a law around breaks, actually. I was just going to mention a 15-minute break every 4 hours is part of the state law for people who are employees. That's the law. So, I'm just mentioning that. I don't have any comments about this. It seems pretty clear cut. Yeah.
Okay, my comment was, I see sometimes the offering service breaks when we're working in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Sit down, have something to drink, take out the snacks, have a conversation, have some more snacks, have some more concentrate. And the break becomes 40, half an hour at least. So
maybe this is written for them. I don't know. I'm not out in the forest enough to know.
That's what.
Yeah, offering service Saturday, part of the connecting with our volunteers is we do give a good hefty 20, 25-minute. John Knight, if you don't pull him out of the woods, he's going to work without stopping, along with Patricia, other people. The offering service, let's see, yesterday we brought out some nuts for the FOSA Singaporeans and me and Venerable and Tenzin. So that was about 15 minutes. But in the old days, we were a whole lot like this, but we don't take breaks in the morning. We've got in the forest anymore. And if anybody wants to, they come back here and they take responsibility for it. We don't bring any food out there except offering service Saturdays, and yesterday was an exception to the rule. Oh, okay. Because I don't usually take them.
It might be that there's different cultures depending on who's out there.
Okay, so once again, Venerable is seeing this. Let's be reasonable. Let's do it for our bodies and not make it be a long conversation. I don't do them, so when I go out, I don't do that. So this is the clarifier.
multiple teams are working, sometimes different places. People are hauling. So we start with our break with most of the people, and then the team that was hauling join later. So that might seem like a 45 minutes breaks, but but what's happening in fact is that there's 3 different teams that are breaking at different times. There's always someone sitting there for 45 minutes, but it's not the same people. I've seen that happen many times. That happened the other day. I mean, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's very difficult sometimes to gather everyone at the same moment in the same spot. That's just not happening.
Thank you.
Going back to this point about the days we have teachings, there's no study time, and offering service is extended in the afternoon. We have so many extra teachings sometimes with the online teachings. I remember a couple of months ago I approached Venerable about this because I was like, if we extend service through study time, then we're going to have no study time to study the teachings that we're receiving. So how do we handle this in terms of like, do we always do this? And then I think Venerable just smiled at me and nodded, and that was the end of the conversation, where it wasn't a black and white. Wasn't as black and white as it seems here.
I think I mean, I don't make the schedule in this way, but I know that there were some exceptions made for certain programs, like the Vinaya with Venerable Binyan doesn't seem to fit into this one.
That's in study time. That's been scheduled in study time, but it's more like, then there's some online teaching, say, in the morning. It's not always that we miss our study time in that afternoon. Otherwise, with the frequency that the online offerings are being made, we wouldn't have any study time. And then how do we study the teachings that we're receiving?
So your suggestion is this needs to be rewritten a little bit for what we're actually doing?
Well, it's just is not as black and white as this. I don't know how.
Yeah, I think that's true from what I've seen. But I don't know how. My problem is these things change a lot. I haven't made a lot of what's written here, and so I don't know how these get to this place. I think the way the schedule has been going, generally we're following this for the most part. I mean, I think when Venerable, I'm just saying it doesn't match what it says here.
I'm just saying that, like, sometimes, like, there was some time recently where you taught. I think you taught in the morning, and we didn't miss study time in that afternoon. It wasn't. I think it was the mind training teachings in the morning. So most of the time when there is a teaching, like Thursdays and sometimes Geshe Tapke, then we extend the offering service time until 5:45. And then on other occasions when there's like an optional teaching in the morning, or we don't always
Right. I think
miss
I get
the
what
study
you're getting
time.
to.
I'm not wanting anything to change. I'm just wanting to acknowledge that what we are doing, it seems, is not as black and white as what is written here. And I asked about this once because as part of the events team, part of writing what goes on the board, I'm like, if we want to attend the optional teachings, then we got to skip our study time. Then when do we always skip the study time? Then it makes it difficult to have the time to study like the main weekly teachings. I'm not asking anything to change. I just wanting to acknowledge that the practice that we're doing is not as black and white as it's saying here, and I just want to acknowledge that. So
I guess I was thinking when you were speaking that maybe I thought when people go to optional teachings that is their study time.
Yeah, that's my understanding, is if you go to a teaching, that's your study time. So I'm not sure what she's speaking about.
Well, I think that's what it says here. And I think that's the choice. Yeah, it took me a while to figure out what you're saying, but that's where I kind of came to, and you're confirming that. And did you have a comment, or are you just trying to move the mic?
No, I have a comment. Maybe that's just me. So if that's just me, that doesn't need to be discussed. But sometimes the way we approach guests with offering service, I find it a little bit rude. Like at the end of a teaching, the first thing once minimal that's left is like, okay, people in work clothes in front of the prayer wheels in 15 minutes, or let's meet in the quiet room. I don't know. I find that kind of rough sometimes. Or right after the gong rang in the morning, the first thing that happens is two people are rushing towards you, talking about offering service stuff and asking for people. If you're an offering service coordinator, this kind of stuff I noticed too. Or they go straight to the guests, asking them stuff.
Can I ask you a question? I have noticed what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
So I know
Also
what
in
you're
the
saying, but I want to ask you a question. Are you an offering service coordinator?
I was covering for a while when the Bhikshunis were away.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is where I got that. Oh wow, this is happening. Wow, this is tough.
Right. Well, it's actually the difficulty is it's kind of a bind. If you don't speak up right away, then it's actually hard to gather people's attention. So I think the thing that I would suggest, because I'm hearing it the way you hear it also, it's kind of jarring. I think the thing to do would be maybe to ring the gong. Let the gong be the jarring part. And then with our voice, try to be inviting. And I think if you watch the way I would say Venerable Sompton and Venerable Damcho are our best models for speaking to guests in a way that I would want them to be heard. That's just my 2 cents. They always, even when they're riled, and I can't do this, they are able to come across as calm as anything. And so that's what I would aspire to, because if I was the offering service coordinator, I would probably not be feeling calm. So this is a skill that they have achieved. So I know it's possible. Well, I don't know about you, but I know Venerable Sompton can do this. I have witnessed her in the Buddha Hall meetings be hot under the collar, she told me later, and she is smooth as silk and so polite and so this and that. And it's like, I aspire to this actually. So this is what I would say is what we need to work on. I think it is something that would be a skill that can be developed. We have people in the community who are quite good at it. And because we don't want to be jarring sounding. It is hard to get people's attention. It's very difficult to be the offering service coordinator and have everything fly at you at the last minute and then have to coordinate it. So, but the thing is it's going to be a little chaotic, so you should kind of rest in that and then don't add to it by the way you introduce what's happening next.
In the most perfect world, if you are in a department and you need support, you know who's facilitating the next day or that day. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to ask the community who's facilitating on what. The question I get more than anything is who's the facilitator today? Right. We have 6 signs around the Abbey and nobody knows the sequence. Right. So if you do need some support and you know ahead of time, like Venerable Losang needed some people today. Mm-hmm. I heard that 2 days ago. Right. And he lined up who he might be able to help. So it behooves us to be able to know who the facilitators are and be a little bit proactive so the facilitators aren't getting you at 10 after 8 asking if they can have some help that day if possible. Right. Sometimes it's not that possible, and our facilitators are getting pretty darn flexible. Mm-hmm. They can wear 3 hats at the same time after this many years. So, but it is a little challenging when it's last minute and then you kind of demand you need some support when it's 8:35. Right. I would say from my perspective on this, all kudos go to the offering service coordinators. I think they've grown tremendously, but I haven't seen the growth yet in the pre-planning of the people who are asking for help. I haven't seen people plan ahead. I mean, I don't know who's the offering service coordinator, but I know when I need help that I need to plan early, look at the sign and figure it out. And the other thing that I think that we set up, at least for the offering service Saturday, was, and I think I want to repeat this because I know from Venerable Children you have to repeat things 3 times. So I'm repeating this because 10 times. That's what I'm hearing from the peanut gallery.
when we do offering service Saturday, it's a great time for things in your department to be done, and you need to be there. Someone from your department needs to be there to facilitate it. This is how we'll get the maximum done, because we only have so many offering service coordinators, and we all know the forest needs a lot of oversight to be safe, and it needs a lot of people out there, which leaves the rest of us who are, like infrastructure and operations and this and that, who have maybe things that they do need help with, grounds, the other aspects of grounds like gardens and this and that, is to plan ahead, and on offering service Saturday, plan to be there or have someone from your team who's going to facilitate the guests. This is what we decided in the circle. Yeah, and we reinstated, and it didn't happen last time, actually. It happened the time before, but we had the circle, but we had almost no monastics at the circle last time. And we had spoken about this the time before, about how important it is for the guests to see a presence. And that circle is going to be very short, like it's very short. And then the people who are doing forest work are going to go outside and finish their planning, and the other people. So we're not spending a half an hour in this circle. It needs to be short. But having more monastics there is important for the guests, even if you're not going to be going out on a team, just to come there for 10 minutes, because this is the part where the people who come here actually are coming here to connect. And this is what we spoke about. The harmonizers spoke about this, right? Remember, we rolled this out, and it happened the first time. It didn't happen the next time. And so I'm just mentioning it, that now we have another time coming up, I think, Saturday. So if you can plan ahead, if you have something that you want your department to do that isn't, in the usual things that are going to be covered, and then even if not, try to be there just for a short time, because this really should be 10, 15 minutes max, and then people split out, and then, like, if, say, I was going to do something in infrastructure, like, say, Venerable Losong wants help with this, what he's trying to finish up here, he would have it, then we'd know who's there, we'd have that person assigned, he would go off with them and start. People could break up at that point. But then we've already done the offering service prayer together. We've had a feeling of the community being part of offering service. And then we've met the needs of what our guests actually want out of coming here, which is connecting with us and helping the Abbey out. And it can all happen 15 minutes or less if you show up on time. So that was the plan there, which happened once. 1 for 2 so far. We're on the last point, swarms. Everyone should try to participate in swarms. Try and stretch your mind to do things you don't usually do. It won't kill you. It's good to get away from the computer for people who do a lot of offering service requiring mental concentration and do things with other people. And yeah, that's for sure. And it's community building, and it can be really fun when it happens that way. It's kind of like, for me, the highlight of the Abbey. It's these kind of things. I think we've kind of talked about this recently, and not sure we're all there, but okay. Well, let's go with the questions before we enter another section.
As the forest quote-unquote lead, sometimes offering service coordinator of the day would send me people. So out of the people they have, sometimes we don't have that many guests. And I was just, do I kind of become the offering service coordinator person because now I have all the guests and then they leave and do something else? Or should they come with us? And I don't mind, really. I'm just asking because sometimes I have this feeling people are just sending people and then they leave to do something else, and that's fine. But I don't know. This is a question.
I'm not the one who can answer that. I think one thing I know is that sometimes they have other people and they're managing the other people that aren't in the forest.
There's sometimes a little bit of we always need help in the forest, but sometimes it seems like, from Venerable Konchog's experience, that the facilitator has things that they need to do themselves, so they give him everybody, thinking he'll figure something out. So they have time not being the facilitator that day. So he's thinking that then he become the facilitator? If you're leading, if you have offering service and you have a need and you take the people with you, that's one thing. But if the facilitator assumes that you can have everybody, when in fact he doesn't need half the people, then the facilitators have to be very cognizant of the motivation of why they're giving people away, rather than maybe expending some energy being creative to try to find something for the people to do. And the forest does not. Sometimes we can't use 8 people. We've got one facilitator, or the facilitator if Venerable Kuntrag needs help, the facilitator of that day goes with him into the forest. So there's 2 Abbey community residents with the guests. For him to go out there with 6 people is not safe. So instead of giving him all the 6 people, the person that day goes out with him and becomes part of the team. That would be the best scenario. Because this is something that he's trying to learn at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And some days I can't be out there, but he seems like something he's getting they're kind of getting dumped on him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the facilitator goes away and does safe or does whatever, and they leave him. And then he doesn't know what to do after 3 hours. He's got these 6 people. Okay, what do I do now? So there's a sensitivity about clear communication on what does he need, how many people does he need, and that's all he needs right now.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question? How many people can he handle safely out there at once?
Well, depending on their experience, when it's him and Tenzin, or him and Venerable even a good guest like Tenzin, who's really knows the forest quite well, he could probably do 4 people fairly safely.
So Tenzin, him, and 4 more.
And 4 more people, which is what we did yesterday. Mm-hmm. We had the Foses and me and Tenzin. And then Venerable Gyatso came, which eased up the responsibility. But more than that, you just can't track that many people safely.
Right. And my other question is when that happens and the offering service coordinator isn't there, they've all gone out to the forest. I mean, I can't quite imagine that everyone can do 3 hours out there. So what happens when the person needs to come back? How do they find the offering service coordinator?
That's the piece that's a little bit more difficult, to have someone who has their first experience. They want to be out in the forest. They last for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We take whatever the quick break they take. Then you've got to, first of all, you have to figure out, do they know how to get back?
Right.
Or do you drive them back?
Right.
So that some of the information is not available at the time. If you have a headlight, like Ray Har it was her first time yesterday in the forest. And that's why I spent so much time with her. Mm-hmm. So that she would have, someone there with her and she could do it with ease. But sometimes you don't have that. She would have had no idea how to get back. So she was able to be there for 3 hours with a lot of ease. Well,
it seems clear from what you're saying that the offering service coordinator should go out in that situation. If they don't have guests back here that they need to handle, then they should go out. Or at least maybe come out after an hour, work something out, communicate something, because every situation is different depending on the constellation of people.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you can give it but there should be communication. It doesn't sound like you've got the bases covered.
In general, what we've tried to encourage is that all the offering service facilitators stay with the people they're facilitating, whatever the task is. And that is challenging when there are 2 or 3 tasks being done. But in general, not just and it could be in the forest, it could be chopping apples, it could be anything. So we're encouraged to join in with them.
Is that happening? I mean, but I'm asking now the people who are offering service facilitators, the people who are being the offering service coordinators, are you staying with the guests or are you going off and doing other things? I don't know, so I'm asking.
It really depends. If I'm coordinating like 4 people and maybe 2 people are doing one activity and 2 people are doing another activity, then I'm not necessarily staying with them because they're in 2 different locations.
So you're going back and forth?
I might check on them. It depends what it is. If it's cleaning in Gautami, then obviously I'm not going at all. We're just coordinating in the meeting and then they're going and doing that. So it really depends. Right. Yeah. I mean, whatever it is, it might be, clean for an hour and then they're doing something else, like they're joining the mantra rolling or something like that. But I often see, because I'm on Wednesday, so that's chore day, so I'm often coordinating chores, so people are going in different directions, and I'm not always with everyone.
Yeah, sounds to me like we have the general idea here, and that the details should get worked out with that team.
This seems a little bit related tangentially to what was being discussed. I'm wondering if we're still really using that whiteboard of the OS requests, especially in that idea of, oh, there's, extra people who can't really handle the forest. What else is there for them to do? Because for a while I was trying to write things on there, and coordinators weren't asking about it. Nothing seemed to be happening. So I just stopped putting things up there.
Well, in the hallway there, it's 9% lots of it's not a non-dismayed hall anymore, so we can remind that.
Yes. I could, fill that half up. And it's sometimes difficult when the offering service coordinator then kind of quote unquote springs it on me of, hey, can I send you 2 people to do this thing this morning? But there's also been days where I've said, yes, I will drop what I'm doing and we will do this, and I will then pay attention to them.
I wanted to just appreciate Venerable Sam K and also Venerable Kunchok naming that it takes time to ease in a new person in the forest, because I'm obviously not very cognizant of that. And sometimes as the resident on the team, I'm like, I'm just in there to have fun or to exercise. And that time when some new guest got very ill when we were working out together, like he had taken multiple breaks, and at some point Venerable Kunchok's like, I need to take this guy back, and you are the other resident, can you just watch over everyone else? I'm like, oh, okay. So it really helps. At that moment I saw, wow, it's so helpful to have at least 1 or 2 of us out there with the team, because someone else was running a pole saw, and and there was a huge group of people. Just
that was my thinking around this too, because I used to do a lot of hiking and mountaineering, and having another person there when you're out in the middle of nowhere and somebody has to go back, having 2 people instead of 1 out in the woods would be a lot safer. Even if it's not an offering service coordinator, if it was a resident, yeah. I had a thought that we should review the 10 reasons why the Buddha gave for each precept and see if any of them apply to our guidelines. That's your homework. I have explained the pratimoksha. I have explained. I can't remember what I said. I have explained. I really haven't explained. We have talked about the Abbey guidelines. We now dedicate all the merit of talking about the Abbey guidelines so that all sentient beings may attain Buddha.